everyone, and welcome to the third episode of Bitches Analysis Corner. If it's the first time you're tuning in, we sit here and we drink alcohol and we watch some Quidditch and talk about the game. That's it. Boys aren't allowed. You've caught up. This is our third episode, and I have three new guests with us today, so I let them introduce themselves.
Jane. I've been playing for I think 4.5 years. So I've been playing on Valhalla, which is a Canadian Toronto team. I've played on MLQ Rochester in the 2018 season, and I'm co-coach of the Calgary Lightning here in Alberta, and I've also played on the TCH'S Pan Am's team. And they, them, theirs for pronouns.
Hi everyone, my name is Cornelia Tzana. I play as a chaser on the Lost Boys. I believe this was the fourth year with them this past season. I was also in the Los Angeles Guardians back when MLQ was a thing in the West, and my pronouns are she, her, hers.
Hi, I'm Emily Hickmott. My pronouns are she, her, hers. And I've been playing for 8 years for Tufts in college, and then I played for QCB, Lone Star, Heat, and Bosnia, and then the Boston Knight Riders and the Austin Outlaws as well.
And I'm Lindsey. If you have not figured that out yet, I have played for 7 or 8 years. Started at Emerson, played on the Lost Boys, and then I played on LA Guardians, and I did LA Aftershock. So this game today, my pronouns are she, hers. This game today is a little different for people outside of the West. This is kind of a new concept. When MLQ took away the West teams, basically Steve DiCarlo, with the help of Alexia Barnes, created our own league, and this is going to be a game from that tournament. This game is going to be the Northern Lights, which is basically the North, so that includes people. It's basically mainly the Vancouver Stormcrows meets Rain City Raptors with a handful of extra people in there. And then it's going to be against Orange County Riptide, which is essentially a team comprised of UC Irvine, so Anteater Quidditch, as well as Long Beach Funky Quaffles. And again, there are a few Lost Boys sprinkled in there. People that you would see on OC Riptide would have played on LA Guardians if that was still a thing. And the Lights never would have had a real team. So that's that. So this is the semi-final game. The winner of this game went to play LA Aftershock in the finals. Which LA Aftershock won, but we were going to get started and hop right into this. Oh, and if you're watching at home, Orange County Riptide has really cool jerseys with like a wave and stuff on them, but they are very hard to see the numbers. So Cornelia and I know many of these players, and I wrote some basic descriptions on their names of what they were wearing for Jane and Emily to kind of follow. So just be patient with the fact that Jane and Emily know many less of these players and are going to do their best to keep up with the fact that you can't see their numbers. So appreciate your patience. So this is actually it's pretty high quality game footage from Alchemy Video. And then even you look in the top left corner, we have the score on the side the whole time, which is super convenient for everyone watching at home. So thank you. This is done by Ariel, who was a Texas player and now is out in LA and does some film for us. So we are going to just get started. All right. So for starters in this game, Orange County has Nicholas Stensing, Mikey Scottstad, Rachel Ramirez, Michael Richardson as keeper, Daniel Belton, and McCall McQueen as their starting line. And then Lights has Jake Malloy and Jacob Keith as beater, Rosh Grom Van Hopt, Celia Evans, Chris Rothery, and then Dylan Carlson as keeper. So those are your starters for both of these teams.
So my first thing that I noticed when I was watching this was how loud Dylan was being. As a keeper, he was doing a really good job directing people where to go and talking to them. And I think no matter what defense you're running, that constant communication is really important.
I do think that the female keeper, I think from the OC Riptide, they were in a really good position. The pass wasn't entirely perfect, but I think that they had a little bit more time that they could have possibly stepped around to actually try to make a shot on goal. I think that was really unfortunate that it just kind of they paused a little bit too much and then kind of try to throw the ball back into no man's land where there's no receiver. But I think the positioning overall was good to start with for sure.
This is a pass from Michael Richardson that goes to McCall McQueen. And so McCall's right there, catches the ball. I've seen McCall play. McCall is a very, very, very fast player. And I personally think she would have been capable on a quick step on Dylan. Dylan's a more than competent keeper, but I think she has enough of like a head start and could have like made a juke and stepped to the side and scored that instead of trying to get the pass to Daniel Belton, where Celia Evans, number 3 on lights, tips it and then collects the pass. So agreed. I would have liked to see an attempt at a goal there as opposed to going for a pass.
It looks like Riptide managed to keep Bludgers on that, which is always a solid thing.
For those of you watching at home, Kobe Kendall is on Orange County Riptide. He was concussed earlier that day, snitching, and is not playing in this game, but you would have seen him if he was not injured.
All right. So on this play, I really like the pick that Dylan sets at the beginning because it gives the ball carrier, I think Ross, the chance to kind of like see the field, and then he does a really good job stepping when the beaters are distracted, and so he has that nice easy lane.
And that's something I noticed for number, I believe it was 31 on Northern Lights. He was really great at taking advantage of short moments and just taking advantage of situations and making moves, whether that was a turnover in midline and just dashing through, or any other lull in play or change in the beater setup. From what I saw during this game, he was ready to just jump in and make a move when those opportunities presented themselves.
I would say that Ross that's number 31. He plays on the Rain City Raptors, and I think he's probably the most talented player on the field. He is very, very good at Quidditch and will never receive the attention for that because no one cares about Rain City Raptors.
Yeah. The one thing about that last play for the Rain City Raptors beaters is they ended up in a situation where now their team has no Bludgers back. So they did a good job like helping create that lane, but now they have both of their beaters beat and a fast break the other direction. So
it caused a lot of chaos, but didn't end up being super worth it.
Yeah.
I also feel like it's great that Ross is setting the pick. I think it wasn't like overly utilized as well as it should have been by keeper.
Because Ross carried the ball.
Yes. So I think like it should have been utilized a little bit faster. Also, like the beaters kind of went in and did try to like help out, like set up a lane, but like I think there just need to be a little bit more like faster engagement from like everyone on offense. But yeah, I think in this one they eventually get the goal. Like it's eventually called good, so like it still worked out for like in them favor. But yeah.
And for OC's defense on that pick, I think they could have communicated like the switch a little bit better too. You can kind of see that like once that pick happens, neither one is really committing to the ball, and that again allows Ross to cut. But I agree that he could have cut harder off of the pick to begin with.
Bottom screen up.
Go see that.
So this is a really good wrap by Dylan. But I have some thoughts about the Northern Lights defense on this, besides Dylan doing a really nice job wrapping him up. So you can kind of see once the ball gets to Daniel Belton, there are 2 chasers by the hoops, and then Rotherty picks up a person. But then when the ball swings back out to Princeton, Rotherty steps, and that man, no one picks the man up. And so you basically had a lot of like, when Princeton gets the ball, there are 3 defenders on the hoops and none on the men, like the keeper. And so it makes it a really easy pass for Princeton to make.
And I think this was a great row of passes from Riptide too. They really could find the open players and pass the ball around. So that definitely made the defense move around as well, as they were following first Michael Richardson and seeing him just shoot past everyone, turning their attention on him, and then having the ball passed to the other side of the field and kind of moving that defense around, opened up the lanes for those good passes.
Definitely always like at least like one player that was pretty much completely open and in like a pretty good spot for taking a shot on goal too. So that was well utilized, like you guys both said.
Yeah, this was wild that it kind of like no one really saw. Like the beater chaos just kind of took over, and Ross and that's Jake. Jake, I have the number and I wrote it down. Jacob Keith, I think. Just could get around that so easily, and it's hard for anyone to get past Princeton. So Princeton is one of the shortest, strongest Quidditch players I've ever met. So he made a great cut through him, and then.
Yeah. And the beat from Nick on Celia, I think shouldn't have happened. I think he should have gone quaffle, because I think he did have time to get there. But
so we've got Nick over here, who. Okay. So we've got Celia back here. There's Princeton up at point. And then Nick takes Celia out. It would have been about like a good option, but if Nick had looked up for a little longer after he had recovered that ball, going after Jake may have been a better, smarter move.
Thanks, Alexia.
I think at this point, OC still has ledger control.
Yeah, they keep ledger control for a lot of this game, even though Lights plays a lot of dual mail sets, and I think that just speaks to their beater's talent without having Kobe especially.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
I don't know what happens with Belton here, but it's a beautiful pass and should have been flawless, but he just falls.
Yeah, I have like one little thing on this. So if you see, Rachel Ramirez is right by that little hoop and is open. And I think she's a better option for Michael Richardson in this situation, because she's uncovered. It's an easier pass to make. It's a lot easier to just flip that out than to try and thread it through like, it looks really great. Like, it's a great pass. But I think if Richardson had flipped it out to Rachel there, it would have been more likely to kind of, it's like just a higher likelihood of finishing, because there's not a defender there. You don't have to try and get it through Dylan, because Dylan is very good at the hoops. So
Unguarded by the same hoop for the last two or three offenses, I think. And once like caught on that she's in a really good position and that she's there. So I agree with that. She should be utilized a bit more.
Yeah, I'm a big Rachel Ramirez fan. She is doing really great, and she's very good at catching and dunking those balls right by the hoops. She's done it so many times and so fast. So she's definitely, a safe, secure bet, especially when she's that wide open right by the hoop.
yeah.
Nicholas Sensei and Kelly Concepcion beating for Riptide. Kelly is probably top 3 strongest female beaters in the West at this point.
And I really like this defense from Paloma on Daniel Belton. She's doing enough that she's keeping him from advancing. Like, she may not make that tackle there, but she does a really good job making it so the rest of her team has time to like recover for that.
And she hustled throughout this game. I was watching her, and I saw her just dive on Princeton and just definitely hustling to get out there with the defense and keep the opposing players on their toes. And I love to see, especially like smaller female chasers just getting up in people's face, because that can really throw some players off, and just keep going back, even if they get pushed away or fall to the ground. She kept getting back up and getting back in the game, which was really fun to see.
Definitely a pretty feisty. She played Storm Crows. She's a really good player, both like offensive and defensive, and for her size, she always does make quite some good hits, and I don't think people expect that, so it definitely works in her favor.
Mm-hmm.
So I go back because a lot has happened since this is the player we were just talking about. I'm gonna let this play through and turn on my lamp over here because my room is weird.
And I think this is just a really good drive from Daniel Belton.
Daniel Belton's a really good Quidditch player. He's a I think he was one of the 2 or 3 West players that made it onto the college draft, and that's very deserved. Belton's a really good player.
Yeah.
He's a very explosive player. A lot of his goals are similar to this, where he's, waiting for the right moment, and then he just shoots through everyone and scores with his hand through the hoop.
And he just had that play with the drive, and then we can see this beautiful, beautiful tackle where he strips the ball, gets someone to the ground, and then is up and already going again.
Yeah, and I do think on this play, OC loses bludger control for the first time, which I think there's like a bit of a long beat at the start. That is like, it's a good beat, but it's like, if you stop it, it's like right off of the frame. So I think just making sure to avoid long beats as much as possible.
OC just subbed in Carl Ferrer, who is a Long Beach player with Claire Bosman, are their 2 new beaters on the OC Riptide side.
Yeah, and that's, I think, one thing that I noticed about this game is Saltzman, I feel like it's David, but the Northern Lights beater, he does a really good job on presses overall. Like, he is pretty consistent in creating turnovers at like mid-pitch, which he does there, which is awesome.
Back a bit because I think it just kept going and it was pretty choppy on one
Yeah.
of the Northern Lights offenses because I think there was.
I can go back if you want to.
Yeah. I just think it's just like, it just keeps playing and then I don't know.
Yeah, it's okay. I can go back as many times as we need to. Okay, so this is with Drew ball carrying.
Yeah. And I guess like Nate was in a relatively good spot, but that chaser on OC Riptide did a pretty good job at following him so that when he did catch the ball, he was able to actually throw him off like his bounce a little bit to get it back and then make a pretty good hit.
Yeah.
And I think Polona was in a really good recovery position to try and slow them down or at least get it back before it became like a keeper's ball. I think that like it's not the greatest offense, but I think for how they managed it, they did.
I think it was a good offense met by a better defense, which doesn't always happen. So that was Princeton who took Nate down over there, and then keeper was Michael Richardson, partnered with Nathaniel Delario, who stopped this play from happening. So,
And Carl with the bludger.
Yeah, he came in
just heading back there.
They managed to beat out like at least half of Northern Lights offense too. Like I think you see number 9, like David, the beater going back, Polona, Nathan Unrow, all like running back to hoops like beat. So like that would help them set up like their offense too.
Yeah.
The biggest thing in the entire game is Shay's pants, and if we don't acknowledge it's just we have to. It was the beginning of September. It's still summer in LA. No one knows why Shay was wearing full length, like sweatpants, and I just need to point that out.
I want to call out Shay on the pants. We can call out Wyatt Verscher. I should.
Oh, true. Wyatt's got him too. I just don't know Wyatt enough to bully him.
Year round, like it's just constant. So you can also make fun of him for that too.
Right.
I honestly don't know how either of them did this because I know exactly probably how hot it was, and no.
Yeah.
So we've got Josh goes by Ish. Josh Isazaki keeping now for Riptide.
On this, I really like what the OC beaters do in the way that they split, because it causes like the chasers and the beaters to have to kind of adapt. And Claire, I think, is able to create a no bludger situation. Unfortunately, the Northern, like Paloma is once again locked down D, and they don't get to drive on it, but it's good like creation of opportunities there by the beaters.
I will say though, Riptide had a few passes that they tried to do from one side up top all the way across to the opposite hoop that just did not work out for them, either because of pressure or because the person wasn't positioned quite well by the hoop. So if there were a couple of times that I think that goes back to what we talked about earlier about the pressure that the Northern Lights beaters are putting up top, that's kind of forcing Riptide to do those long passes that don't quite get to their target.
Yeah. Like Hail Mary passes a little bit, like, I believe.
And more time to like intercept them too. So like that definitely helps like the Northern Lights chasers.
Especially because Lights has so many tall people.
Yes.
It's very easy to be taken down by that. Anna falling on that ball was so huge because no one else was making a rush to that, and Wyatt was right there. And thank God for Anna in that play, because you can see Shay and Nathaniel and Ish being like, there's kind of a ball there. Maybe I'll go get it. And Hannah is just there.
Yeah. There's definitely some plays like throughout this thing where I'm just like, do you care that there's like a ball there? Or are you just like, you're just tired and you want to break and you're just kind of like letting it go? But no, she did a really great job.
Austin Wallace on point with Siri Rigsby without a bludger for Lights.
I feel like just like watching some of their defense like going in, Northern Lights I feel like might have needed a bit more communication as to who had who. Like I've definitely seen a couple people, like I've definitely seen like Polona like pointing out on who she has, but it definitely seems like I think it was Jess Schwant who had one of the people, and Austin Wallace was like very close, and I was like, well, if Jess already has this person covered, you should be really like focusing on someone else. It seems like they're just kind of like leaving some larger gaps sometimes. I think that might be just like a communication.
Yeah, it's definitely, it was clear playing this tournament that all these other teams had a little more history playing together, and then when it came to Northern Lights, it was like these are two entirely separate teams that do not play together, compared to like Aftershock was a lot of Lost Boys, former Gambits, and some UCLA players that have all had a little history together. Riptide, Long Beach and UCI play together all the time. And Fog was mainly like breakers with a handful of like Dobbies and some college players. So it was like everyone kind of had their like group, and it was pretty clear like playing in this that there was a communication divide with Lights. But I want to go back. This was an interesting play that it's a lot of great passing that then met by a lot of great defense, and it falls flat pretty badly for Riptide. So Nathaniel passes up to Ish, which is a risky move anyway, and then it goes to Shay, who makes some great cuts.
Yeah.
Fights off Wyatt entirely, who's almost double his size, and then this just gets so messy.
Yeah, and on that, I think if Hannah was a little more out from the hoops, because she's staying relatively close, so the keeper is able to guard her relatively easily. But if she kind of popped out a little bit farther away from the hoops, she would have more time and kind of be more in Shay's eye line on that pass.
Also, I'm sorry, but like if you just go back like 5 seconds, you can see a really funny shot of Jess Schwant accidentally throwing the quaffle into Wyatt's face.
Yeah, it was A+.
Because like she like recovered it.
Love to see it.
I like how like Wyatt's arms are just like, nope, that didn't work.
Okay, however, the two of them make it up on like the next offense, which was like honestly one of my like favorite plays. I do notice that they've like paired a lot of the Canadians together on Northern Lights because they have all played like on the same team. So there is like some pretty good cohesion from them because they all played Storm Crows. But yeah, I think it's when they start pairing them with like a few other ones. And like Nathan Unruh is actually typically a beater. So like this was like the first time I think he was chasing. So there's also like that disconnect too. But I think he does pretty well. But I really like this because like Wyatt gets the ball and is patient enough to wait for the beaters, and then Jess is doing a really good job at like calling for the quaffle, and she's like completely open right by the hoop, and it's like a perfect pass and a perfect like shot. So I think like that was a really great offensive play for both of them.
Yeah, and I think that the Northern Light beaters do a good job to causing it, so like kind of getting the beaters out of position in a way that Wyatt's able to take that line and then get that pass off.
It works out really well for Lights because Ish is keeping, Hannah loses the like 1v1 against Wyatt, which makes sense. I would also lose that 1v1. And then Josh steps to take Wyatt and then I think communicates to Shay to step, but then Shay was like tagging back in and does not see Jessa behind him at all. And like if that communication had happened like a second earlier, Shay may have been able to like snap that ball down, but it worked out so flawlessly for Lights that Shay was not ready to do that.
I do think at some point as well, given the size of the Northern Lights players and their height, I feel like Riptide should have done a better job communicating some like double wraps on these players because a lot of them are very big, and Riptide has a lot of fast players, but not necessarily people that could stop that kind of run through. So that would definitely been a good point to sort of going back to communication talk and set up some 2v1s on the bigger people.
And on that last offense for OC, I think the keeper, who I think is Josh, does a really good job. Like Claire clears out the point defender, and then he actually like takes that space in like a more direct manner. So he goes off of her beat and does that shot. And I know a lot of people like you'll tap out the point defender and then you just like keep walking. And then that's not really forcing the defense to adjust as much as you would want it. So good job by both of them there.
Josh Sasaki is known for like having the long shot, and he knows how to use it and when to use it, and it's painfully successful. So you've got Jake Ronar keeping for Lights now. Siri Rigsby right in front of us as a beater.
Actual for Northern Lights as well.
Some great defense, I think, against Rachel Malone in that play by Nathaniel and Ish.
Yeah. I do think that that's like a very optimistic pass to me.
Yeah, it was
like
it was a beautiful cut by Rachel, but then like it just got like between all three of those boys, we're just like, we're here.
Yeah.
No,
And two Northern Lights players cut to the same hoop. So I think the cutting player from behind the hoops kind of brought their defender in, which made that a harder like play for her to make. So it's just like always communicating like where you're cutting with your teammates so you don't go to the same place.
Like one thing to like help with recovery, but then there's another one where it just like conglomerates like too much, and then you're just pulling in more defense.
Yeah.
Oh, there's like some unfortunate misbeats from like
Yeah.
that would have been really helpful, except for I know that this gets like a little bit confused. Like Wyatt did a decent job at getting the quaffle like out, but then OC Riptide was still fast enough to like pick up the loose quaffle, which I think is really great on their part. But it's also really good that Northern Lights also like again quickly engage like the new chaser with the quaffle. I think it ends up being Northern Lights' fault, but
yeah, I think what the call ended up being was was off broom and like dropped the quaffle, but it should have just kind of been like OC shouldn't have been able to continue play or something like that. Like that's what the says. This was a goal that I think literally no one saw coming. Like to Jake, and if this audio was on during this play, you can hear Princeton on the sideline yell like quaffle, quaffle, step, step. Princeton is also like one of the primary ball carriers for Lost Boys, and I like felt him like say that in my spine. But Michael Aguilera gets topped out here. This is where I stopped watching after my rewatch, so I'll have a lot less thoughts after this, because the first time I went through, I just collected OC Riptide numbers, but when I'm doing my rewatch, I got this far. But I think Aguilera gets beat out, and no one really steps to Jake here with the quaffle, and then the Lights just keep control, and then Jake just takes the shot and makes it. And I don't think anyone on Riptide thought he was going to shoot, but no one stepped to point, and they got the goal easily.
And there's also a bunch of people hanging out around that hoop, and that ball just made it through. I made a specific note for that shot. That it just shot straight through all those people and went in. I think everyone was just as confused about that goal going in.
Got Miguel Villa with Michael Aguilera and McCall McQueen up here, and Stephanie Lutz beating, and Mikey Stossgard.
So here, I really would love to see McCall there take the lane, because she had so much space. And like, she takes it most of the way, but I mean, I would love, like, the beater, if she cuts more to the middle, like the medium-sized hoop there, I think she could definitely, like, get a nice shot off there. But I think she was in a really good position to allow them to, like, keep control of the quaffle. But
I like agree. That was like one of the things I noticed, where I was like, man, like she's got so much lane that she could kind of go for middle. Also because like a good chunk of them probably wouldn't have expected it, but she like kind of kept to like the side, which would make it a bit easier for them to have like pushed her out if they wanted to, which they didn't. But I agree. I think it would have been pretty cool to see if she'd like taken a bit more of like a central lane.
McCall has like the speed and talent to be an aggressive player, and I would love to see it more in her, because when it does come out, it's chef's kiss. But it takes a flawless opportunity to see it most of the time.
And some guts, because you know, getting hit a few times is never a fun time if you're flat out. So I also get the hesitation in that too.
yeah. So I think that was good defense. I think that there was a beat that was unnecessary at some point in the offense. So
Rachel Malone with quaffle over here.
yeah.
That's a very long pass.
Yeah, and I think the reason she has to make that pass is because she doesn't really have any passing options that are closer.
No one's
So like when she gets that, someone, like, people need to be giving her options that are closer.
Yeah, she needs.
And then
like there was no one close to her, which is unfortunate. Like I think she could have made like a few more steps towards the hoops, but I think also her teammates needed to be like closer.
yeah, always like cut to your ball carrier so that they have the option to pass to you if they need it. And that's just very hopeful, like a very hopeful pass. And McCall was like really open, and it would have been probably a better option to swing it to her.
Mm-hmm.
Like those, like, let's hail it over the top are very optimistic, which is what I know Cornelia was saying earlier. But that's just great D from McCall.
Like McCall just stepped and knew that she could do it, and then she did. And then Aguilera was there for her, and it worked out great. And then you just got to run with it. Aguilera was the captain of this team.
I just love this Aguilera run because you can like see it in the way he moves it. He's like, oh yeah, here's the goal.
So it's like a little over the shoulder look to make sure that he was like good to go.
So one thing on this right there, you see Celia get beat out by Nick. And that's one thing I know that when I chase, I try and make sure that I'm never just like that easy beat for a beater to take me out without having to like move. So just watching, like swinging that cut out a little bit more.
I don't know if Nate strategically, Nick strategically did this, but it is so beautiful, and I just like saw this for the first time right now. And Nick he's over here, comes up to meet Rothery going for this ball, and I don't know if Nick sees this and sees how close a lights beater is right here, but Nick whips his ball at Rothery, and it goes out nowhere, and Nick knows that he's closer to this purple bludger to pick it. And I don't know if that was calculated or if Nick was just like, I'm gonna throw really hard because I want to, but it worked out so well because I think in this next step we have a no bludger situation because Lights doesn't have a bludger bag because Nick's went to no man's land. That's all.
Yeah.
I also think it's like, at least I think for like Chris Rothery, they knew that there was a beater coming. Like they had enough like peripheral to understand that they were going to get beat to like attempt a kick for the quaffle just to try and get it back into like their zone. I think it was really good. I don't know how successful it was because I think they did call like kick after beat.
Yeah, I think that's what happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now they have no bludgers because it's so fun.
Yeah, and if I was Celia, I might have gone more towards the hoops on my first step, just because it's like, you know where Aguilar is going, so if you try and kind of take like a sharper angle there, you might be able to get in front of him and slow him down enough for the beater to get back in the play. All right, I need to let my cat out. 1 second.
I'm gonna pause for a second.
You are a diva.
For viewers at home watching who
my
don't
God, I hate
know,
you.
Western Championship Quidditch plays with the MLQ set score rule. So once we get to that 18-minute mark,
Oh my God.
we'll go to a 60 above set score. I realized since it was at the beginning, and if you didn't know that, then you wouldn't have known that. That was a great time for me to tell you that. We're at about 15 minutes of game footage, so probably like 12 or so minutes into the game. So we will hit set score eventually with a snitch, and you know how that works now.
Man, he's such a diva. He didn't even leave the room when I opened the door.
I just wanted to cry.
I just wanted attention.
He is a
The
diva.
hustle of Dylan on this play is honestly infuriating. I'm so mad about how fast he is. But
Yeah.
we have another long pass situation that goes awry. And he outruns without like
Picks up that ball and makes it count with that pass.
Yeah.
It's like a side shot jump that goes straight in.
Yeah, I don't understand the physics of how that worked, but that was a great play from like number 2. Yeah, Dylan to Chris Rothery, and it just like worked out so well. It shouldn't have, but like, well, it's good.
Yeah.
Alright, so we've got Michael Richardson back in a chaser headband, which is rare.
Rachel and Rothery giving a cute high five to each other. They're on the side.
Yeah.
Okay, first of all, that was super wholesome. Best friends. Rothery was in the West for a while with us. That was nice. Adorable. Oh.
Up here.
And then this is like a very typical Daniel Belton is bigger and stronger than everyone play.
Yeah.
No surprises with that.
But here, I think the Northern Light speeders do a good job creating a no bludger so that you get a nice fast break and turn around.
And I think this was like the one offense like out of a couple maybe where they also did have bludger control too. So, like that worked really well in their favor.
We've got Jackson Schultz keeping now, but Michael Richardson remains the ball carrier. I think that they made that decision just because of Jackson's height and the fact that Michael can flex easier to point than Jackson can.
Great here by Molly to get the OC beater out, so then Saltzman can press, which he's been doing really well, which creates that turnover.
Molly has a really good game this game. She has a really good game in most of her games, but she plays really well.
Yeah, and that's great defense from Ross on intercepting that pass.
We've got Kelly, Concepcion, and Carl for beating together without control on Riptide. Another great press by Lights.
Getting them over the midline, putting pressure on them like pretty high up, which is good.
That behind the back pass from Michael Richardson is wild. I didn't notice this the first time I watched this.
Casual.
It's the ball here, and it's just like, oh, there's something.
Like
And
you have eyes in the back of your head. I don't know.
yeah, one thing about the press that Saltzman is doing is he doesn't have a lot of chaser help. There are a couple people who are pressing with him, but I think anytime a beater does a high press, you need to have your chasers like picking up man so that people can't just like pass it off. So getting tight there.
That was also a great hit by like Chris Rothery, like a few bits back. It's just unfortunate that it wasn't enough to like actually like dislodge the quaffle.
That's right here.
so,
They do a good job there.
Like that was such a great hit, and then they also just like got back up, re-engaged. It's just unfortunate that it wasn't quite enough.
Yeah. And if I was Kelly, I might have beaten them out right when they were like next to me.
Yeah.
And here comes the Rachel Ramirez goal.
So they finally played out to her, which is awesome. And then that's shooters gotta shoot. But I do think like it's a great shot, but it's not a very high probability shot.
No, absolutely not.
So I think it would be great if when she gets that ball, she has teammates who are like cutting to her, so she has options besides making really great shots.
And I do think, I'm not sure if there was a beater coming at her, but I think she was wide enough from the hoops where she might have had an opportunity to take a couple more steps just to make that shot more secure. Nope, there's a beater
Yeah, I saw someone there. This
coming right at her. Never mind.
is a whole bunch of chaos that's fun to watch.
This play is it's kind of confusing. I watched it like 3 times because I couldn't figure out how or like who eventually got it, but eventually like Nathan Unruh got the ball somehow and scored. It was like,
But through 3 OC people, Rachel, Daniel, and Michael are all like wrapping Roz, and the ball just drops. And Nathan is the only person who I think that sees it on the ground. I think the other 3 are just so caught up on stopping Roz that they don't even realize that they stripped the ball, and then Nathan does, and it
Just scoops it up.
he like goes underneath and like kind of like dips because you can kind of see him like dip in the back, and I think there's like the like Northern Lights beater there with like all the OC and the keeper, and then just like runs off, and people are just kind of slightly confused as to like where and how the ball got to where it went. I'm surprised that it worked, but that's pretty impressive. One shot of everyone. Are they discussing the goal in this?
I think they're like discussing to see if like anything happened that would have made the ball dead on the light side, and I don't think anything like they're like, oh, like was Roz beat or anything, and the answer is no.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think they end up calling the goal good.
Yeah.
So I think they restart and play, but I know it, like at the end result is that someone gets a goal.
Yeah, because they hand it back to Nathan, who then
Yeah.
just really puts it through the hoop.
So I do know Michael Richardson was definitely off room in that tackle. It's really clear when you watch it at like 0.75 speed. It's like, oh, that room is not between your legs.
Oh, I did not pick up that at all.
All right, so we got Michael Richardson ball carrying again.
And Molly does a great job clearing out the free beater that OC had, and then again pressing there. Doesn't even throw her ball.
Yeah, this was a risky move by like Riptide in general. I don't know if Rachel would have been the smarter decision here because she is once again open, but Michael cuts towards her anyway, so kind of brings his defender that way. Like Rachel's right there. That may have been smarter than this cross pass to Daniel.
Oh,
It just
for sure. I think, like, again, she's so open. Pass the ball to Rachel. 2020 or 2019, I guess, is when this was filmed.
That was like a really good play for the Northern Lights beaters, though. I feel like there was that double beat at one point at the very start, but then the ball literally rolls like right towards the hoops, and I think it's like David's able to like put pressure, and then is that 30?
Yes.
Mom is like right there for where the ball is going, so it's like super easy for them to just like keep putting pressure and like beating out those like offensive players from OC.
Yeah. Although I think this is like right before snitch on pitch, and they do lose bludgers, but I feel like snitch on pitch is chaotic enough that you should generally be able to get bludgers back. And
So we've got Kelly and Mikey, Kelly Concepcion and Mikey Stotsgar. God, I just call him Mikey. beating for OC with Miguel Villa, Nathaniel Delirio, Shea Hillinger, and someone else. Anthony Hawkins is the stitch for this game. And I would be doing this for lights if I knew all their players as well as I know Orange County, but I'm doing my best. We got
I feel like there's
Jake Ronar is keeping, I can tell you that, with great defense. If this had been a give and go from McCall, this would have been a goal, but McCall took that 1 second, which I always take the 1 second, and it's always so sad. But if she had released after the immediate catch, it would have been a goal, but Jake is too fast.
Yeah, the keeper covers the ground really, really well there, which is hard to do in a lot of those situations.
Attrell and Molly as the beaters for Northern Lights. I think Austin Wallace just came on, and Jess Schwant is by the hoops already.
Got Molly and Taylor Attrell beating, and then seeking is Josh Ish, and then Rachel Malone. Yes,
Yeah.
are seeking.
Which we love to see.
We really do.
And I think also set score at this point is supposed to be 160, right?
Yes, I believe is correct.
And this is actually the first game I've personally watched with a set score because I wasn't able to make it to any of these games. It was definitely very exciting to see the scores go up to hit that mark.
Yeah, that's good D from Austin, for sure, keeping Shea from getting in the lane.
Jay is a speedy boy, so it's hard to beat him out, but
What I don't get is why Taylor Attrell drove all the way into Riptide's hoops to get out that one beater. Like right here, like you can watch him just chasing the one other beater all the way to the, and like not even really kind of accomplish much except for take both of them out of the play and not regain control. So that was like a little bit confusing to see why you would not be anywhere near either like the seeker or the defense on that play.
It doesn't make any sense, but he also hustled back and made that beat on Shea, which is crazy that he like stopped that play from happening, but I agree that it seems like a very unnecessary like cross field beat.
Yeah.
So got Jake Ronhar bringing up the ball for lights.
Austin Wallace.
Daniel Delirio playing point here.
Yeah, this is great pressure there from Kelly. Also, the way she controls her beats is really great.
So good.
Like you can see her step, make that beat, recover her bludger, turn, catch the ball thrown at her, and then get the beat off to prevent the goal. So, excellent play.
Miguel Villa bringing up this ball with Mikey and Claire Brosnan as their beaters. It's crazy how set score changes beater play so drastically as far as cinch on pitch goes, which I like better.
Yeah.
I think a much more engaging and like exciting game. And it's like the snitch is still important because it will give you those extra points to get you close to the end, like score that you need. But like it also does like completely change the dynamic of how you.
Yeah.
Even,
Can we go back to that last offense really quick? I want to talk about how well Paloma plays defense again.
Okay.
So there, she's on her man really tight.
Okay.
And then when the ball pops her way, she does a really good job keeping herself between her defender and the ball, which allows their team to kind of recover that.
She was the worst defender. Nathaniel would have scored on that play, I think, without a doubt. So. I don't really know why Nathaniel was stepping so like severely with that play. I don't think he had like the beater support to make anything happen there, but.
And that's a great beat from Claire to get that off and recover it.
I don't think I think even if Wyatt had caught that and that was a slightly better throw, I think they still would have gotten there in time to kill the play on them.
This just looks like it hurts everybody involved.
Yeah.
It's a great hit, and Nathaniel falls right on Austin's face. It's bad.
Great hustle on Austin's point of it though, especially because the keeper doesn't have the ball, which means you can still actually engage. Whereas a lot of people will just be oh, you have it, we'll just run back to defense. So I think that was still really good to try to get it back in some way, but yeah, ultimately
again,
it's full.
Again, here, watch Paloma keep Princeton in front of her really well, forcing I had a soccer coach was if you ever make your opponents go backwards, you won that interaction, and she's consistently making them pass backwards. So.
And Princeton of all people, it's very hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was just able to get around Wyatt. And I think there still seems Wyatt seemed to be not guarding anyone at that point. There's still that a bit of disconnect too. I think for the most part the only consistent person was Polona from what I could see, who was sticking to their person.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Even here she falls down and is immediately back up every time, even with Princeton.
That was a great hit by Wyatt though.
Especially with the height difference. It's crazy to see anyone that tall try to hit Princeton. I like that Tommy doesn't move from the ground after he gets trudged over by Anthony, but we can watch here.
Yeah. I think we also get the snitch catch here by Daniel Belton, which Ant is a difficult person to catch. So
also fantastic. Well, I'll go back so we were just watching this, but if you look over here at Daniel seeking against Chris Rothery, we've got a dive and pull. So that ties the score back up 100, because I believe Riptide is down 30 at this point.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. My favorite stat was literally neither team scored on when the snitch was on pitch.
Yeah, I don't know how that happened. But I think that it just shows the shift in beater game than from a USQ game of how different it is. Because beaters are we're still gonna play defense.
Yeah.
So Anthony is done. I'm going to keep this running and go get another Truly. I'll be back momentarily. But if we have to go back, we can do that. But I don't want to pause it because I think they talk for a little bit.
Oh yeah, that's true. I think they're all pausing and stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
Discussing the legality of the catch. So.
That's true. That always takes some time sometimes.
It is.
Okay. It looks like we're starting, but that's okay.
Perfect timing.
That might have been a slightly illegal hit because the Riptide has the ball. It seems a little bit confusing as to why Wyatt was the only one bouncing back and forth between the two.
Yeah.
Shouldn't be happening. I think there should be someone else up there calling the other person, so that there shouldn't be so much back and forth.
Yeah. And there again, Paloma does a really good job intercepting the pass. She's tight on her man again. A+ defense.
What's the stoppage for?
I think some illegal conduct, maybe. Or, someone, Northern Lights, one of the players played after beat, I think, is the call. So they're turning it back over to OC.
Interesting. I thought that Taylor Atchell was beat by the Riptide beater. I don't know where's her name?
This one is Nick Stensing, and this is Claire Brosnan.
Okay, I thought Nick had already beat out Taylor Atchell, but because of maybe one of the plays, Taylor is allowed to stay on brim and also now has a bludger. But it's a little bit confusing. So I guess, at this point, Northern Lights now has bludger control.
Yeah, that was a turnover, but
yeah.
Got Miguel ball carrying with Princeton. McCall's on this side.
Yeah.
That was a great game.
Nice. Yeah, that was a great game.
kind of a hopeful pass.
Yeah, they have a lot of those. It's one thing to have a hopeful pass against like a shorter team, but like Lights is just, if all of their male chasers are so tall, you can't take hopeful passes against them.
Full of tall boys.
I think they're all at least like 6 foot, if not more.
Honestly, like Austin, Wyatt, Dylan, Jake, Ross, they all are.
Cool. And that's just a great mid-range shot.
Yeah, that was like, I don't know why they like underestimated Jake's ability. Like Claire's back here and not really looking at Quaffle, and then cuts too late, and then.
Yeah, I think one thing about OC, they have bludger control a lot, but they're still getting scored on, which is something I personally am of the opinion I would rather lose bludgers and not get scored on. So I think they're maybe being a little too conservative with their beating.
I do think that Northern Lights goes for a lot more long shots compared to Riptide, and Riptide doesn't quite adjust for that as fast as they should have. So they're still trying to prevent the drives, but they're letting all those shots get through.
Yeah. And that's just another really great press by Saltzman, where you can see he like covers the whole field, pushes Daniel back into the reset, beats him out. And then that's, again, I think there the chasers did do a good job of covering the options so that it was pretty easy for, I think, Jake to make that beat.
Out to the people going after the other. I do think though that Northern Lights, they tend to like do a lot longer shots, but also miss a lot of the longer shots. Like they do really well when they do try to like pull it back and do close range beats, but I've definitely seen them lose a lot of bludgers because of their long beats, which I think is where OC can easily pick them up and kind of just like go back and be a bit more conservative.
Yeah. And that's great reaction from, I think, Carl on the beat. And I think
I also think in regard to like the lack of beater regression from Riptide, is they all are used to playing, well, not used to playing, this is only like a one tournament thing, but like Kobe is the aggressive beater on Riptide, and Kobe doesn't sub out that often, honestly. So they're all used to like, anyone can partner with Kobe, and they're like, I'm not the aggressive beater. So not having him on the field at all definitely reflects of like people deciding on their press and pass situation.
Yeah, I also do think Northern Lights throws their passes into traffic a lot too.
Daniel Belton, so strong, so good.
Yeah.
There was definitely one goal where the keeper just lets OC Riptide just score on them basically, instead of like even trying to attempt a wrap, or like you can charge as a keeper, and they just like didn't make any of those attempts. I'm not sure if it was that one, but there's definitely.
This one is pretty. Daniel just like has a lane and takes it. We'll just go back and watch this right here.
Yeah. You know, sometimes you just don't want to get trucked, and you're like, it's okay.
But I also feel like with the size that like Northern Lights has, it's like, are you really getting trucked? Like you might, but like, yeah. It's just
attempt here. If Ross had supported Dylan, maybe they could have stopped Belton. Dylan tries and falls because
also
too fast.
Belton barely avoids a beat right there, and that gives him the opportunity to drive. But it was a very, very close call on that beat.
I do think it was definitely one of the earlier ones where it's like definitely the keeper, and they just like let them go, and I was like, oh.
Yeah. So I think that was a good look overall.
That's just like standard good Quidditch, like.
But again, the beaters result in like a no, like the Northern Light beaters have not made sure that they have a bludger back. And since they've been having so much trouble stopping Daniel on drives, I think that's definitely something they should work on, to be a little bit more conservative and making sure that they always have that bludger back on defense.
Really ready and like prepared to make those like fast breaks and to like immediately take advantage of like their offense if they see an opportunity, whereas I feel like Northern Lights like to try and like set up and like take it a little bit slower with each time without really trying to capitalize on any of those. So I
Yeah,
think
they
those guys are like helping OC a lot for sure.
and Rotherty just has that really good shot from that like corner, which is definitely one of the more difficult shots to make.
That was wild. So Lights has Jake Malloy, and I think still Saltzman is beating. Siri is now switched to Chaser, which is showing like the reflection of how they're using their female beaters. That was just
It was beautiful. It was a good
flawless.
shot. That was like a jump shot, and it's like didn't even have to, just extra strength. Good goal. I'd be shocked if it wasn't. Okay, Rothery seems happy. So I think
Looks like it counts.
We've got Stephanie Lutz, Amanda Bortner over here chasing, Michael Aguilera, Michael Richardson, Daniel Belton, and I think Mikey is on the field for Riptide. Oh my God, Daniel Belton is so good at Quidditch.
Yeah, I think
breaks again.
I mean, Michael Richardson just evading all those defenders and running loops around them is so fun to see.
so. I feel like Northern Lights should have adjusted to the fact that Daniel was kind of tearing them apart. But also
That is
great. You go.
a great moment from Amanda right there from
Her face.
yep, swatting down that ball and seeing it happen and just jumping in front of it at the right moment by that middle hoop.
Yeah, having really active hands.
I like the hair flip.
She like looks upset after, but she had a great play, and I don't know why. She's like, oh no, like it was great. She stopped a goal. I don't know if she was mad that she didn't like go after it after to how I don't know, but she was like, oh no, I don't know why.
Great block.
Like Drew's up here kind of by himself, which is the opposite of what we saw happening earlier with Saltzman of not having the support, and Drew just kind of stayed. I think he could strip the ball from Michael, which to me is a crazy thought.
Optimistic thinking for sure.
Yeah, I guess.
There's definitely been a couple of them do that. Like Austin Wallace did that, and then Drew's done it.
Yeah.
It was just like that small hope that they could just like rip it and then like run to the hoops.
Yeah.
Much like what they've been doing for Riptide.
This is great D by Siri right here on Aguilera.
Mhm.
I know he's like fine and has control of it, but then he makes a bad pass. So
Yeah, I think that he should have gotten rid of the ball sooner. He should have used Amanda's pick better. Like, if you aren't making forward progress with your defender, try doing something different.
all right, so we're back with Nicholas Sensing and Kelly. Something that also surprised me during this game is Timothy Connor, who is the blonde male chaser on Riptide, has primarily switched to beater, and he does play both positions pretty well. But with Kobe's absence, they would have expected them to take Timothy and put him into the beater line and run some dual male. And I was both like sad that they didn't because I like to see Timothy beat, but also like stoked that they didn't because like Kelly and Claire are great, and Steph are all great beaters. So that was an interesting take on the Riptide side.
Yeah, I think you're beat it. Like, if one person keeps scoring on you the way that Daniel is scoring on you as a beater, I would just like start making throws at him and making him make other people on this team make plays. Don't just let him drive through your defense constantly. Because there is a beater with a bludger, I think, or they're recovering, but
they beat him after, so they make him run a little bit, but not the way that they could have done.
Now they need to like have two chasers on him, like
yeah.
or also like you said, like force him to make plays, like have like a beater and a point. Like they're kind of giving him a bit too much space, and they're still leaving a few too many gaps for potential passes, but he doesn't seem to really need them at all. So
Like if one person continues to score on you, do something to make it so that person can't drive through you in some way. So either put a double point on them, get a beater on them, like do something to adjust to that.
Especially with the size of the lights male chasers, they're just so large that it's honestly like Daniel Belton has a football background, so he's just like inherently athletic and like knows to push through people. But like with lights being as big as they are, I'm surprised that they weren't just like, we have all these tall, strong boys. Like, let's put 2 of them on Daniel and maybe we'll stop him. And they never really did that, which was crazy to see. But obviously, Riptide capitalized on it because Daniel was one of the top scorers and I think it's sort of an MVP. So.
Yeah, I do feel a lot of the time Northern Lights played closer to the hoops, which allowed Riptide to get a running start with all their drives and just gain that momentum and just drive through everyone.
like I think they need to engage sooner. Like they need to have like quite a bit of space after they like come over midline. And the few times where they did engage them earlier and like push them over the midline, they did really well, I found, and like could like recover or like steal the quaffle. But you're right, like the hoop D, like it doesn't work as well against really good teams either. Like not the most ideal situation all the time.
Yeah, a lot just happened here, so we're gonna go back.
Yeah, this is I think the play that I was thinking about earlier, where Kelly catches the beat and then recovers, which is just A+ on her. They do. Northern Lights does a good job flipping it out to Paloma, but then it's just kind of
a pass that ends up backfiring. But
yeah,
it's a good look.
Austin Wallace is like fast enough that they were able to like compete for the quaffle, and they did manage on getting it too. I think like one of their beaters helped them out and like got out the Riptide person. Like that was really good on that play.
This is Colin McCarthy here with Austin Wallace ball carrying.
and I want more picks in Quidditch.
Me too.
I love a good pick.
Especially if you like you know it's happening and they're like you communicate that and it's utilized really effectively. They're so great.
Yeah.
And like I feel like people just don't appreciate them as much.
Yeah, especially off-ball picks.
I do think communication is a very big part of setting a good pick, because you can set as many picks as you want, but if your ball carrier isn't on the same page, then you miss the split opportunity to take advantage of it.
Yeah. And then half the time you just end up with like either 2 defense people because you dragged your defense and then gained 1. So like it's definitely, you need to talk about it. But off-ball picks, like you said, are also phenomenal, and those need to be utilized a lot more. Like I know a lot of people, I do them a lot, especially behind hoops, but like it feels like you're almost taking yourself out, but you are really, really opening up quite a few players to like be like really open by the hoops. And I think that'd be a really great thing for them to utilize at this point.
Yeah.
Definitely like for the greater good kind of move. But this next play I wanted to stop and go back to, because this is like one of the top times that people did seem to notice Belton making a drive, and he still got through 2 people. It wasn't a double team, but 2 people individually like put a hand on Belton, and he's still. If anyone is watching this from outside of the West and is always like, we have no footage, we don't have footage. But if you've been waiting for Daniel Belton footage, here it is, and this is like a perfect moment to show what he's capable of. So he's got the ball here. He does have support from 2 beaters, or push people back for sure, but Nick steps up. Austin is ready to make contact, makes contact, can't do it, and then still can't get past 31. Like, truly, he doesn't get stopped unless he falls like he did earlier.
And then here, if I'm Northern Lights, I'm gonna be really careful, because if I turn this ball over, I'm probably gonna lose. So I think making sure to be really methodical especially since they have bludger control, doing like everything that they can to ensure that they score on this is really important. But
If they had scored, they would have won this game on this offense.
Mm-hmm.
And with bludger control, which they gained from like the OC's offense previously, they should have been able to.
I'm gonna go. A lot happens here, so we're gonna go back. So we've got Ross here with the ball.
I think Palom's already at the hoops.
Mm-hmm.
and they should see that Paloma's being marked and swing it to, or she was briefly, and then swing it to the free.
Right now.
Yeah.
This is a great hit by Michael, which honestly I was surprised was not called as like below the knee contact, because from this angle it looks like it ends up being like a light trip. You can see Michael with Ross, and then like by the end of it, I don't know where Michael's hand ends up, but Ross hits the ground pretty hard. Austin outbeats Daniel Belton here, and then we go back to Ross and just
That's
take
good pressure from Kelly.
Yeah.
And then no one, like, Polona's, again, wide open. Like, they could have easily passed to Polona. She's fast enough to get around, like, any defense, too, even with, like, an extra step there.
She's
Yeah.
right here. Looks
She's
like it's
also
supposed to be a
one of
shot.
the
Still
third,
needs to
like, wing
goes
chasers.
across, and a lot of bludder stuff happens.
Yeah. And then that, I think, is, they call a turnover for an illegal reset, which is the last thing you want in this sort of situation.
Mm-hmm.
Because,
And
again,
this close to the set score.
yeah, you're so close to set score. A lot of your players are beat. It's going to be, like, very hard to stop a goal on this sort of situation.
This game's already, like, really, really close. It's been close, like, pretty much this whole game, where it's, like, back and forth goals that if they had just taken it maybe a bit slower and not, like, by the signs of it, they could have ended the game by now.
Were there timeouts in this league, Lindsay?
There were, but they were not used very often. I know in Aftershock, we like played all five of our games, and we were like, each time we were like, oh yeah, we could have done that, and we didn't. So we had it, but they weren't used by like any team.
Yeah. I feel like it would be like a good time, or like probably a little bit earlier, to have a timeout and just like regroup as a team. Because I think that definitely helps like settle the whole process.
Yeah. Especially this close to the end, people tend to rush a bit and kind of lose their pacing.
Yeah. Or even just like to have the time to, well, they could be doing that right now.
I think
it's a stoppage.
Timeout now, yeah. But they like weren't like I know at least for Aftershock side I don't think we used any of them. And I also think it's worth, while we have this like break, I also think it's worth noting that I do not think Lights had any non-players on their sideline. Like they don't have a coaching captain staff, while Riptide did have both Joe Robles and Alex Richardson, who both should have been playing. Joe had like a fractured collarbone after some practice, and Alex had some other injury. So those were like Aguilera's two like assistant captains, and both of them had injuries, so they weren't playing in the game. And I think just having that, like having any leadership presence on a sideline is really helpful. Well, for Lights, Drew was their captain, and I obviously people like Austin Wallace and stuff are going to step up and try to lead a team, but they didn't have that same sideline presence.
Yeah, and it's super hard to make calls when you're in the game.
Mm-hmm.
But they did finally stop Daniel.
They did. Let's look at that one more time. Oh, look at Kelly's game face. Oh my god, I love her. She's ready.
Intense.
Okay, so
Yeah.
we got Daniel over here, finally gets some sort of stop, and a turnover.
Yeah. Which, again, I think that's the best defense we've seen from Northern Lights in a while.
We've got Drew ball carrying again. He was their captain. We've got Ross on left wing. Salzburg beating. Dylan Carlson chasing. And Molly beating. So they've gone back to the split set.
Yeah. So I think, again, that's Northern Lights continues to pass into pressure, and like where there's people with pretty heavy man coverage.
She was like open from where she was, but that
Oh,
ball.
I think the first one, not the second pass, but the first pass.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
The other chaser, like, kind of coming in towards, it's like, sometimes I feel like the chasers, one will be in a really good spot, but the other one won't either realize or, like, communicate or see that they're there, and then they'll just kind of, like, both be in the same spot, and, like, even if one's not covered, the other one is, and then they'll just drag their defender with them, which makes them both useless.
Yeah, so again, great defense from Paloma there, which allows Saltzman to do this press. Like, she kept Shea in front of her the entire time, which gave her beaters enough time to both win the exchange and then get to where the quaffle was and then pressure enough to score.
Mm-hmm.
Also, my bad. I totally thought that Northern Lights was the red team. So, like, no, this would just tie the game.
Oh, yeah. So now we're tied.
Yeah. Now it's whoever's next goal, like, wins the game.
Which is so exciting and stressful.
Yes.
Yeah.
So stressful.
I think we had 2 games. We also watched, it was either Lights and Fog or Riptide and Fog, and I can't remember what it was, but it was like the same, like back and forth, but their game was like 1-1, 1-1, and it was like everyone on the sideline was like trembling. So we had a lot of close games with the set score. So you've got Dylan here playing defense on Belton. That's probably the best matchup they're going to have.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Ross makes a great hit on Michael.
Yeah.
Snaps to Michael for getting through that, but then he's like, I'm going to give this to Daniel.
Both of them ended up being off broom too, which is like a huge disadvantage for your 2 like main point chasers to be off broom at the same time.
Yeah.
And Daniel Belton wins the game with literally no surprise there. So Carl starts to try to clear a lane, doesn't really take anyone out other than one beater, and Daniel just gets through people somehow endlessly. And then I believe that is called good, and that's the game. So then OC Riptide ends up going to finals, and I think Lights goes against and plays San Francisco Fog for 3rd and 4th place. And okay, so let's like go through some end of game thoughts.
My first thought is that, again, the fact that no one scored snitch on pitch is kind of not great. Even with beaters involved, that's a solid, like, I'll check my notes. It looks like it was like 10 minutes or like 5 or 6 minutes of just no scores. Even if your beaters aren't helping you, you should be able to kind of work off ball and on ball well enough to give at least a goal from either team.
Agreed.
I think also both teams were like a lot stronger offensively than they were defensively. Like, I think it definitely shows also that if OC Riptide can have bludger control, which I would say probably like 75% of the time at least, and like Northern Lights was still able to get goals on them, like almost like you said, like back and forth. It just kind of shows that they either like weren't as aggressive with their beaters on defense. If both teams can just be more offensively, but then they couldn't defend, it was kind of interesting to see that matchup.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, kind of related to that, like I mentioned before, I don't think either team really adapted as well as they could have throughout the game to what the other team was doing, and especially on the Riptide side, with them having 2 very good players on the sideline that were observing. I'm a little surprised that no one adjusted for all the shots that got through, and all the tall people that got their passes off.
Going back to Jane's point, I also feel like it felt like beaters were kind of playing a lot just like beater focused, especially on defense, and then not prioritizing beating the quaffle as it was coming in.
There's a lot of distracted beater play that led to a lot of messy goals that shouldn't have happened.
I also noticed that on the Riptide side, even if it didn't quite work out for them with their passes, they did attempt to go to play deeper and behind the hoops much more than Northern Lights did. They mostly kept their play up front, and then with side passes along the hoops, while Riptide tried to swing some players all the way around and behind, they just weren't able to quite connect those passes across the field.
I do think Northern Lights, though, used like mismatches on defense, like when they were going offensively, like pretty well. They have like a much larger team that it's a lot more likely that you'll end up with a mismatch for like your defender. So it's really good that they did see that and kind of like take advantage. Like OC Riptide had a lot stronger passing, so like that worked in their favor a lot on their offense. So that was interesting. I like that.
Especially up top, closer to the midline. They moved the ball around much more than Northern Lights did.
Hey, awesome. Yeah, no, I definitely agree with everything that was been said. I would have loved to see this game with Kobe. I definitely think it would have changed the game entirely. We all know Kobe's good, but when everyone starts to get used to playing with Kobe, everyone on that team is going to be like, okay, like Kobe's the aggressor and I'm like the not aggressor. And so to have him like not be able to keep that like dual male benefit, I think definitely affected Riptide. And I think if they had Kobe to make those aggressive beats, I don't think Lights would have even been up at any point during this game. So that was definitely a huge shift to see. For like context, the first game of the day was Riptide versus Aftershock, and Aftershock lost in a pretty close game, and that was with Kobe, and then Kobe got injured before the finals game. The finals game was Aftershock versus Riptide, and Aftershock won out of range. So that just speaks to the like asset that he is to a team. I would have loved to see him play this whole tournament, but obviously when your head gets hurt, you can't do that. We'll shift to our next piece here. Who are your team MVPs? And again, for the viewers at home, I specifically told the bitches here to not pick bitches just because that this is like a female and non-binary related space. I don't want us to be like, let's pat ourselves and other girls in the back, because that's not the goal here. So if their MVP is a bitch, then that's great. But I have instructed them not to prioritize female and non-binary players for the MVP category of this show. So let me hear your MVPs.
Okay, on that note though, how can you not pick Polona?
I know. No, I totally agree.
Yep.
Like all of us literally were just like, Polona did a great thing. Polona did a great thing. Polona did. I was like, so I think like probably all of us probably would have picked Polona, but
Yeah, she was my MVP for Northern Lights. I think she was the best defender on that team. I think a lot of her plays led to turnovers, which led to goals on the other side. So even if she wasn't, like, I don't think she scored in the game, but she was still, the effort that she was putting in was producing goals consistently. So I think it was just very impressive to watch.
Mm-hmm. And just stopping players like Princeton, who was a very just physically strong player, and Shea, who is a very fast player, and just stopping them from progressing and making them, have second thoughts about where to move was already a big win. And a couple of times we saw her be in those positions and make those players reset or backtrack a little bit on the field, which opened up the space for Northern Lights to set up an offense and a lot of times just get a turnover and score.
I think she's a great example of, like, she didn't really tackle that much, but with like her footwork and her positioning, she is able to force people back and not like allow her team to have time to adjust, and just like really kind of emphasizes how important that like agility is, more than necessarily being super like physical and tackling. Not that she wasn't physical, but it was more like just the way she was positioning herself.
Just like committed, like every defense.
Hustle.
She was like,
Hustle.
I'm ready. Okay, so is that everyone's choice for Lights? Okay, I will just say, as someone, I had to like vote in the tournament MVPs, and for one of my choices for an opposing team MVP, I did pick Rosh Schwimm Van Hopt, because I truly believe that Ross is one of the best players in the West, and will never ever have anyone notice him because he plays on a team that doesn't get a lot of attention. And he is just, I've never seen someone capitalize on opportunities the way that he does, and he's also huge. I don't think he was at Nationals in 2019 because he was on a honeymoon or something. I've never spoken to this man, so I don't want to speak for him, but from what I've heard, I think he was on a honeymoon or something. I think he's married. I completely agree with everyone else's selection. I do just think Ross is, while we had saw some players excel on defense, Ross put a lot of points on the board for lights, and that is a MVP stat for me. All right, what about
ability? Like his shooting ability is like pretty impressive. Like I honestly was like pretty much like midline. And I was like, like you could have like full hoop coverage and he'd still somehow get it in. So like that, I definitely agree that he's definitely a memorable person from the game. Definitely someone to mention.
Yeah. If you want to see more Rain City film, I know that they record all their games and put them on YouTube.
They do that, yeah.
Yeah.
And Dylan and etc. ball out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and he was definitely one of the first players that caught my eye, because I don't really know the Northern Lights players, but he kind of stood out exactly for what he said, for capitalizing on those, you know, moments of you know, either beater upset or open lanes and just shooting straight through, which requires a lot of just attention and reflexes to do.
It's definitely a star. I also think we're just like, I hate that the shout out thing, but I also think Saltzman wrecked it with his presses. As like we spoke about this whole time, like a lot of those turnovers wouldn't have happened without him. That's okay. Now let's move on to Riptide. Who are your MVPs for?
So I counted, and Daniel was responsible for 11 points. He scored 8 goals and got the snitch. So I'm going to give it to him because that is a dominant performance by a very dominant player. It's a lot of goals.
I can't argue with that one. Like they definitely couldn't get stopped even when there's like 2 people on them. If they're like getting hit, like they still like made every drive. Also, it's just impressive that they were able to catch the snitch, which is like, I hate seeking. It's absolutely exhausting, and yet they still came on and then just like kept driving. I was like, okay, like you have cardio for days. That of itself is like impressive.
I know I'm like repeating myself, but it's always very impressive to see quick reactions to plays, and I think Belton also had those moments where he saw a beater make a move and immediately just went after that opportunity and the open lanes. And if you had to truck through a couple of people on the way, sure.
Yeah. He also did have pretty solid defense. I think one of the best tackles of the game he was responsible for.
He's an incredible asset in any team that he's on.
I'm trying to like figure out who. I really like the beater pair, like one of the beater pairs on OC Riptide. I think it's Nick and Kelly. I think they were a beater pair.
I was hoping someone would say Kelly eventually.
Yeah, honestly, I think like both of them were just like fantastic. Like even like separately, they were just so great, and they made like so many multiple beats. They were like very aware of like where they needed to be next, like what their next move was, and they worked also like really well together. I'm pretty sure that they did play most of it together. They just seem to complement each other really well, but also like work so effectively alone. They are definitely probably my favorites for OC Riptide.
Yeah, I think both of them have very good field vision and field awareness, because I've seen both of them do some really great just back-to-back plays on their own. But like you said, they also worked well together and were able to keep that bludger control as well.
Yeah. I also think they were probably the beater pair who was doing the best at staying focused on Quaffle. Kelly had a couple of really great beats on the ball carrier that caused a lot of chaos and some turnovers.
I could be wrong here. I might just make some in my head, but I do think Kelly typically would be with Kobe if Kobe was playing. They're like the first string male and female partner together. And I don't think that she earlier in the day was playing with Nick as much. So just seeing them adapt together, I could be wrong. I might just be making that up, but I'm pretty sure they adapted to work together really well. That was one of, I think, Nick's best. Nick played for Lost Boys before he ended up moving to the north of the West Coast. And Nick's an amazing player, but this game specifically, I think, was one of the best games I've ever seen Nick play. And Kelly, Kelly was a chaser, and then Guardians needed a beater, so Kelly's only been beating for like less than 2 years, and to see the way that I am a huge, Kelly knows this, Kelly, I hope you're watching this, that like no one controls their beats the way that Kelly can, and like Steph and Claire are also two amazing female beaters that are on Riptide, but Kelly is just like in a league of her own and truly like has a control and like decision-making skills that I don't see a lot of in a lot of other places. Daniel is for sure the objective MVP, but if I had to pick a number 2, I think a lot of the plays happened in that game because of Kelly. So
I think like overall they're also like out of both those teams like also the best beater pair. Like hands down.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I feel like the Northern Lights beaters could work better together as like a unit, but that's probably just because they're not as familiar with each other.
Yeah, I don't think there's as many like Canadian beater pairs to like put them together, and like especially with like Nathan Unrow switching to chaser when he's normally a beater and having played with Taylor Attrell, like that could have been like maybe a helpful pairing just because of previous communication. So yeah, I think there was definitely like some work on communicating between the beater pairs because they would have had to switch them up quite a bit.
obviously the whole Western Championship Quidditch season was canceled, but I think the Lights was planning to expand a little bit outside of Championship was gonna play. It was good. I was excited. It's fun.
I was so excited.
But the whole league was gonna expand past the 4 teams that we had into 6 teams. We were gonna have a Utah team and an Arizona team, and Lights would have been more encompassing of a little more of the Canadian region, and I would have really loved to see that happen. So hopefully, knock on wood, that we get our shit together and next summer we can even exist. At this point, I feel no point of optimism towards how we're doing things. But this was while it was a relatively like slower game, considering it's like elite teams, etc. I think it was a really interesting game to watch.
For the set score, I know people have already said this a million times, but I do think it makes the game so much more exciting, and I think that's partly because, especially for the last few points, your attention is not divided between the snitch and the quaffle play, and you know you're able to completely just follow the action and just be in the game, which I wasn't sure how it was all going to work out, but I'm very excited to see this being implemented more.
Yeah. Another thing I like about set score is it gives more opportunities for female and non-binary seekers to really thrive. I know that's always fun.
Yeah, but with set score for me, I love it as a player and as anything involved with the team. The only thing I don't like about it is Quidditch is already so confusing to like anyone who doesn't play Quidditch that it's like, but if this happens and it's like we set the score at this thing, and then if you catch a snitch, but the game still plays, like it's almost easier to just be like, okay, the game, like the snitch is caught, the game is over, it's worth 30 points, and that's it. That's the only benefit I see of not set score, of just the simplicity of it, because set score is like, it requires a lot more explaining, and Quidditch already requires so much explaining. But that's the only con I see from it. I was sad that the USQ rulebook didn't shift that way, but I know it's like such a huge jump for USQ to make. I'm not surprised.
But like I do agree. I was like trying to make it the graphics for showing the score for MLQ like last championships, and like I'm pretty sure they had to explain to me like 4 different times because I need to put what where, I need to add what to what.
Yeah.
We need like a set score and then this score and then this one. I was like, isn't there supposed to be like one, and then we need like a snitch like indicator, and I was like, I'm so lost.
It makes it more complex as anyone who's not physically at the game, but otherwise I think it's like it makes the game much more dynamic, so I'm a big fan.
I think it's like a good for like future where it's like we can still keep the snitch aspect, which I know is like a lot of people are like, don't like get rid of the snitch because it is such like a ingrained thing in it, whereas like it still keeps it, but it doesn't make it like the be all end all. And like I think it's a good compromise.
It's also hard because like a team that doesn't have like a star seeker, if they get matched up with like a difficult snitch like Anthony, for example, if you don't have a seeker to go catch Anthony Hawkins, you really don't, like unless your chasers are so amazing to get out of range, which is possible obviously, you don't have a shot at winning. and it puts so much pressure on one single player that no other position has. And making set score gives even if you don't have that star seeker, you can still get 6 points. So I think it's the way for the future. So we'll see.
Yeah, it's so great.
Okay, cool. Anyone else have anything they want to say? At the end of these, we plug our social media and we put it in the bio, which was originally Sophia's idea. So we can all go through that. Whoever wants to go first, just plug your socials.
I feel like most people can find me, or if not, already have me. The only thing I think people don't know about is my website, which is just janearnett.com, which I'm eventually updating to put like all of the jersey designs on there. So like, Quid jerseys. Thing. Yeah.
I'll plug my social media, I guess. It's just my personal social media. I'm not that exciting. I share a lot of art from independent artists, so you should go follow me for those. I am at Cornelia the Greek on Instagram. You can find me there.
I'm Hickm, so like the first 4 letters of my last name and then the first 2 letters of my first name, and then 505 on Instagram and Twitter, I think. Also, my cat has an Instagram at selfcaresunny with an O, not a U, an O, where I put pictures of my cat, and he's really cute and looks a lot like Kingsley. So.
It's true. Emily and I both have black matching long-haired cats, and then Jane has a black matching short-haired cat. So it's like the black cat parent club, other than Cornelia, but she loves Kingsley, so it's fine.
Yes, that is true.
You should get a cat is what I'm hearing.
I would agree.
Maybe once we're settled in our brand new apartment, we'll get a 4th roommate.
Yeah. There are 3 cats in this house. It's fantastic.
Okay, well, thank you everybody for tuning in, and thank you Emily, Jane, and Cornelia for doing this with us. It's like we wanted to be 2 hours, and we started just a little after 7, and we are at 9 p.m. So hopefully this video will be edited down to like an hour, 30 hour, 45 minutes, and that's perfect. So really stoked how well this went. Thank you all for joining us, and thank you to all of our viewers who stuck through these painfully long videos, but we have fun to do them, and if it just benefits us 4, then like I don't give a shit if you don't like it. So that's all. We'll see you next time on Bitches Analysis Corner.
Yeah, look at my notes. They're very detailed.
We take notes here. We got.
I had my notes.
Exactly. We have notes. We are doing this correctly. All right, that's all, everybody. Thanks for tuning in, and see you next time. Bye.